Hello, welcome to day 6 of your quest. Today's challenge is a bit unusual, a bit different from some of the others in the program because it's not about adopting a behavior, but about stopping one. Here's the statement that describes the challenge. An awakened species, having seen and acknowledged what is so, will always do what works. Humans in an unawakened state often do the opposite. Now, when I first heard this in Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species, I wasn't quite sure that I understood what was being communicated here, so I asked for some examples. Here's what came next in the dialogue. If your objective is to live a life of peace, joy, and love, violence does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to live a life of good health and great longevity, consuming dead flesh daily, smoking known carcinogens continuously, and drinking gallons of nerve-deadening, brain-frying liquids like alcohol regularly does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to raise offspring free of violence and rage, placing them directly in front of vivid depictions of violence and rage during their most impressionable years does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to care for Earth and wisely husband her resources, acting as if those resources are limitless does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to discover and cultivate a relationship with a loving deity so that religion can make a difference in the affairs of humans, then teaching of a God of righteousness, punishment, and terrible retribution does not work. This has already been demonstrated. None of these things work, but our species keeps doing them anyway. Now, I understand completely what was meant by the statement. An awakened species, having seen and acknowledged what is so, will always do what works. Humans in an unawakened state often do the opposite. I also came to an immediate understanding of why we so often do the opposite of what works. We have no idea what we're trying to do. I mean, here on Earth. When, as a species, we don't know what we're trying to do, how can we make an assessment of what works? Well, we can't, of course. And that's why we don't. That's why we so often do the opposite of what works. We have no idea what we're doing here, what we're trying to accomplish, what our goal is as a species. What is your goal as an individual? You may find this hard to believe, but when I was a child, just going into adolescence, I thought that the game of life went something like this. Get the car, get the job, get the girl, get the spouse, get the house, get the kids, get the better car, get the better job, get the better house, get the better spouse, get the better spouse, get the better spouse. Get the office in the corner with your name on the door, get the gray hair, get the grandkids, get the retirement watch, get the cruise tickets, get the illness, and get the hell out. I know, that sounds like a joke, but it's not really a joke. That's what I was observing all around me. And nobody seemed to know what the point of it all was. Nobody seemed to know what they were actually trying to achieve with all this stuff they were doing. Most human beings are just trying to get by, just trying to get through it all without making too many mistakes along the way, trying to at least do what's right and not do what's wrong. But the problem is, we don't even know what's right and wrong anymore. Surely we think, surely there must be some guidepost, some standard or criterion, some yardstick with which we can measure or determine whether particular choices and behaviors are appropriate or inappropriate, good or bad, or are best taken or best ignored. But the difficulty and the problem is that our lives don't give us ideas of right and wrong that are clear to us. These ideas change from time to time, from place to place, and from culture to culture. The result is that when one person or culture says a thing is right, another person or culture says the exact same thing is wrong. And this is the source of more than a small or trivial amount of the conflict and violence, killing and war that we have seen on the planet, much of it, ironically, in God's name. Not only can we not get clear, not be sure, not able to agree on what is right and wrong, we can't even agree to disagree about it. We don't even seem able to observe our differences and simply call them that. We apparently feel the need to make each other wrong for holding views different from our own. We can't even agree to explore the topics on which our beliefs diverge, with all possibilities on the table, with compromises at least considered. No, there can be no compromises when we are right. One does not compromise one's principles. One does not bargain with the devil. And we have already demonized each other, so compromising with each other is seen as bargaining with the devil. So there you have it. We're left with our disagreements and our absolute inability to overcome them. Worse yet, we are left with our righteousness about it. We imagine that we are so right about what is right and wrong that we're willing to belittle others, to criticize others, to persecute others, to judge and punish others, to attack others, and yes, even to kill others. All of which we would consider wrong if others did it to us. The interesting thing about right, of course, is that it's always on our side. So our model of the world leaves no room for discussion, no room for debate, no room for explorations of any possibility other than what we hold to be true. Yet here's the great joke. Talk about jokes. Even God can't get things straight from one culture to the next, or from one moment in history to the next. In one culture, we are told that God said we are to take adulterers to the town gates and stone them to death. In another culture, we're told that God said to forgive people their sins and have mercy and never kill anyone deliberately. What then to do? How to resolve these kinds of contradictions? The answer is to build a new model of the world based on a new understanding. And that new understanding is that there is no such thing as right and wrong. There is only what works and what does not work, given what it is we are trying to do. This is what we are told in Conversations with God, and it offers us a daring and challenging new way to live. Our decisions and choices in life should have nothing to do with moral righteousness, but simple and practical effectiveness, given our agenda and our intention regarding the outcomes we wish to produce in our experience. And even that we can and will disagree on, but at least we've taken the moral absolutes out of the equation, substituting for them a simple observational inquiry. Is it working? Is what we have chosen to do working to produce the outcomes we say we wish to produce? Should results make a difference? Let that be our question for the day. Should results make a difference? Have our moral absolutes produced results? Have our beliefs brought peace to the world? Right now, very little of what we are doing on this planet is producing the outcomes for which they were designed. What is astonishing about this is not that this lack of desired results has occurred, but that it doesn't seem to make any difference to us that it has occurred. The utter lack of intended results is having no effect on the actions that we continue to take. Humanity doesn't seem to care. It would rather suffer unintended results, even results that work in direct opposition to what we say we wanted to experience, than to change its beliefs. What God is advising us to do is take a close look at what it is we are now intending to do in our world. Do we intend to create peace? Do we intend to produce prosperity? Do we intend to guarantee our safety and the security of others? Do we intend to generate the kind of life that can offer basic dignities to all? What are we trying to do here? And do we see any difference between what we say we're trying to achieve and what we're actually achieving? Are we capable as a community of sentient beings to admit and acknowledge to ourselves that how we are going about what we say we are intending to do is simply ineffective, and that it has been ineffective now for thousands of years? Do we really think that following the old rules from millennia ago about what is morally right and morally wrong is all that we need to do to create the kind of life on this planet that we say we wish to create? Which shall it be? Morals or function? It is not morally wrong to head toward Italy if what you say you're trying to do is to get to Norway. It's simply functionally ineffective. we do well to not confuse morality with functionality. Things are not inherently right and wrong, and that is an idea we would benefit from releasing, so let me repeat it. Things are not inherently right or wrong. There is no evidence to suggest that people who play volleyball naked on a beach in a sunbathing community are somehow less moral in the eyes of God than people who wear coverings from head to toe and don't allow a single inch of their body to be seen by anyone outside the home for any reason or at any time whatsoever. We have no reason to conclude that people who eat only vegetables are somehow morally more advanced or can be depended upon to make higher critical and spiritual choices than those who eat the flesh of dead creatures, such as Jesus, by the way, who apparently ate fish and gave away tons of it to people while he delivered his Sermon on the Mount. There is nothing in our experience to suggest that people who are gay are inherently, inevitably, and invariably morally, emotionally, intellectually, philosophically, and spiritually abysmal, while people who are not gay are inherently, inevitably, invariably, morally, emotionally, intellectually, philosophically, and spiritually advanced. As absurd as these and other notions are, countless people call them truth and live by them. There are, they say, rules and regulations regarding proper behavior, and those who don't follow them are wrong for not doing so. This, however, leads to an interesting question. Could we survive without rules? Well, it turns out that sometimes the very lack of rules and regulations works better. Anyone who's ever driven around the Arc de Triomphe in Paris understands this perfectly. There are no pavement markings or traffic lanes. There are no signs or signal lights. Yet this is one of the busiest, most congested travel routes in the world, with hundreds of cars whizzing in and out of that circle every minute. And yet there's nothing at all to indicate where one is supposed to go, when one is supposed to go, what one is supposed to do, or how one is supposed to do it. People enter that wild conglomeration of vehicles at their own risk. I used to call it suicide circle. And that's the point. When they themselves are at risk, they take care of themselves and others. They don't need police, they don't need traffic lanes, they don't need painted signs, and they don't need flashing lights. They know what it is they're trying to do. They're trying to get to the other side of the circle in one piece. It's all very simple. When you know what it is you're trying to do, the preferable and beneficial action to take becomes instantly obvious and very clear to you. And as this quest has made it clear, what you're trying to do, what you say you're doing here on earth, your purpose in life, is put into 25 words. Have you memorized them yet? The purpose of life is to, here come those 25 words again, recreate yourself anew in every golden moment of now, in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever you held about who you are. That's why you came here. This is what we're trying to do. This is our spiritual journey. So today we get to ask ourselves, are we seeking to create the experience of divinity in, as, and through us? Or are we merely trying to make it from birth to death with the least amount of damage or difficulty? Does our spiritual experience have anything to do with what works and what does not work in our life? Are we seeing what's so and doing what works? Or are we ignoring both? Your challenge today is to ignore neither. So here is today's assignment. Number one, if there's anything that was not working in your life in the past, make a list of these things in your awakening journal, and next to it, of what changes you made, if any, to create healthful and effective functionality and workability. Number two, now make a list of behaviors that you know are not working today to produce the outcomes in life that you desire, and that you are still doing anyway. Number three, observe life around you closely today and make a running list in your smartphone notes or on a small spiral notepad of anything and everything you see that is simply not working in life as you see it out there. Decide right now what, if anything, you can do to help create workability. Then actually do it and watch how that feels. Let yourself embrace these assignments fully. And I'll see you tomorrow.